and I know I'm going to forget some partners, but we have an agenda and we'll make sure we recognize all our partners along the way. So just to say, we have gathered everybody here together to let you know that we're standing together on this issue to protect kids. And
tuvimos un
thank you,
problema
everybody, for
de
spending time to be here
tecnología
with
que
us.
se fue la señal hace unos minutos.
Thank you, Dr. Bob.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Bob.
I do want to offer greetings and a welcome on behalf of the Fullerton City Council. Mayor Fred Jung is here. Please stand.
Queremos dar a
Thank you.
todos la bienvenida.
Here's our agenda for today. We do have our Fullerton associations that are present that will come up and say a few words in their support of our families. We'll talk about key immigration policy changes, how we have been supporting parents with practical resources, how you can stay informed, and then we want to communicate timeline changes to our families, and then how we move forward together as a district and a community. So once again, welcome Mayor Fred Jung. We have a video from Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva in the District 67. So at this time, we will play that video for you. And we want to say thank you to her for sending that.
Buenas noches. I am Assemblymember Sharon Quirk Silva, and I represent the city of Fullerton. I was also a former classroom teacher in Fullerton for many years. I want to first say thank you to the Fullerton trustees of the Fullerton board and the superintendent for providing these events for families on Know Your Rights. As a California legislator, I can tell you that we are working very hard at the state to also support families. We just voted for $50 million to help families with legal aid. We also know that it's a very scary time. There's a lot of fear in the community, and we know that there's a lot of anxiety. I tell you that you have a lot of supporters, a lot of people who want to do everything we can to protect you. Again, I want to wish you the very best. Please call our office if there is anything we can do to help. And again, thank you to the Fullerton School Board members for doing all you can to protect your families in the Fullerton School District.
And now we have a message from Congressman Lou Correa.
Congresista Luis Correa, aquí su servidor. Congressman Lou Correa, I want to thank you and welcome you to our Know Your Rights Town Hall. Gracias por estar aquí para emprender nuestros derechos, pero también quiero decir, estamos aquí para decirles, sigan las leyes, make sure you follow the laws. We are here to talk about what the laws are and to obey the laws. At the same time, we are saying that as residents of the United States, you have rights as well as responsibilities. I know back home, yo sé que ahorita en California, en todo el país, hay mucha ansiedad. Todos estamos nerviosos porque este presidente ha declarado que van a hacer muchas deportaciones por todo el país. Pero yo estoy aquí para decirles que no pierdan esperanza. Si ustedes han seguido las leyes, se han portado bien, han estado aquí en este gran país trabajando duro para enriquecer este país, tienen hijos aquí en las escuelas, pues este es su país. Y lo que les digo es, no pierdan esperanza de estar aquí. Al mismo tiempo, les voy a decir que tengan cuidado. La situación, digo, está delicada. Pero acuérdense también que esto no es la primera vez que nos han amenazado. Bajo Obama, antes de Obama, y los últimos meses de Biden también, muchas deportaciones. La diferencia es que ahorita bajo este presidente ha hecho mucho ruido, ha asustado a nuestra comunidad. Pero acuérdense, no están solos. Aquí estamos para apoyarlos y estamos aquí para decirles, sigan la ley y al mismo tiempo conozcan sus derechos. Vamos a obedecer la ley, vamos a respetar nuestros derechos y vamos a seguir viviendo aquí. Finalmente les digo, las leyes son muy complicadas. Quiero que si pueden, por favor, vayan a buscar un abogado, un buen abogado que los pueda representar en una situación de crisis, ¿verdad? Y ese abogado, aunque ahorita posiblemente no pueda hacer nada, en el futuro, si cambian las leyes, ahí tiene su servidor. ¿Eh? Entonces, acuérdense, congresista Luis Correa, para trabajar con ustedes y para estar aquí como familia. Muchas gracias y seguimos adelante, como dice Dios. Y bendito sea Dios que cuida a sus hijos. Muchas gracias.
At this time, I'm going to bring up Mariana, a field representative for Congressman Correa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mariana Flores with Congressman Correa's office. My connection to Fullerton is I went to Cal State Fullerton, and the congressman calls it the Harvard of the West Coast. So it definitely is. So he just spoke a little bit about us knowing our rights, and I just wanted to highlight a little bit of what our office can do for families right now. We have a table out there. We do have a lot of resources that we have been able to distribute to the community with Know Your Right pamphlets, different family plans that we were able to put together for families that we've been distributing in different school districts and different communities. So please feel free to grab as many as you want. You can also call us if you want to have a pile available for you, for your students, for the families that you connect with. We can definitely make those deliveries for you. But with our office, we are a federal office. So what we can do is if you do have an active case with USCIS, with immigration, that is something we can definitely inquire about with a status update. We can also, if you do have a case, an ongoing case with immigration, we can sometimes provide a letter of support for your case, depending if the federal agency is already involved. We have caseworkers, immigration caseworkers in our office that can help you or answer any questions, or if there was a case several years ago that you know a family has no idea what happened to that case, or an asylum case or anything like that, we can definitely, you can talk to one of our caseworkers and they can try to guide you the best way that they can for you to get a status update or whether you should not touch that case just yet. Aside from that, it's really, you can call our office and we can provide any assistance with information, what the federal government is sending us, the updates that are happening. I know a lot of families, sometimes they see the news and we don't really know how to distinguish what is real, what is not real. Our office can provide real updates of what the government is sending us. Feel free to call us at any time. You can visit our website. We also have a citizenship clinic coming up if you know of any family members that have a residency, have a green card, and are looking to apply for citizenship, but are able to afford an attorney. We have a citizenship clinic coming up in April. It is completely free for the family. The only thing that does not get covered is the fee that immigration will charge you. However, the attorneys that will be on site will be doing it completely free for the person filling out the whole application, the N-400. All you have to do is call our office and we can set up an appointment for the citizenship clinic. It is a great way to also ask an attorney if you should apply for citizenship just yet. They're there to help you and provide any resources that you might need when applying for citizenship. And that is it. I'll be back there in the table if you have any questions, if you want our contact information. We're really here to support you all, and have a good day. Thank you.
At this time, we want to bring up our association leaders. We have our Teachers Association President, Darlene Naslin, and our Administrator Association, Mike McAdam.
Don't know, is Tanya out there somewhere? I'll speak for Tanya too. No. Welcome. Thank you for letting me be here. And I'm very proud of our board and our district in being the front runners for this. I know there's other districts that are looking toward Fullerton for this great information. So thank you, board. Thank you, district. Along with the administrators, Tanya and I are also bringing this information to the school sites. And I just want you to know that you can be at peace because teachers are also enveloping this and caring about your students and your children. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, just to add on that, Fullerton School District is always forward thinking and positive in what we do, not only for our students, but our community. And really, it's a great opportunity to show the strength of a school board, school administrators, our cabinet, our admins, our management team, and what we believe in and what we really want to keep moving forward and having open communication and just supporting our students, families, and community all together on that. So on behalf of FESMA and our organization, we just want to continue to have that support and also a football player, Fullerton JC. So that's wonderful. Go Hornets. Thank you, Coach Murph, and then Titans as well at Cal State Fullerton. So we always, again, just a great community here in Fullerton. So thank you.
Thank you, Darlene and Mike. And we do want to make sure that we recognize Tanya, our CSEA president, and the amazing work that she does with our classified staff. Before we begin, I do want to recognize all of our principals in the audience. So if you could please stand and the hard work that they're doing with the boots on the ground for our children every single day. And then I do want to recognize our cabinet members that are here. In addition to myself, we have Dr. Chad Hammett, our deputy superintendent, Jeremy Davis, assistant superintendent of IT. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on in our agenda. The first thing we want to talk about is key immigration policy changes. I do want to bring up Bethany Anderson. She's been leading our 3-part series for our parents and doing an amazing job. She is the executive director of Camino Immigration Services. Bethany, take it.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here with my Fullerton School District family once again. Okay, so the reality is we had this conversation back in January. I think many of you were there. A lot has changed and nothing has changed at the same time. So, we're going to just kind of highlight some of the things that we need to be keeping on the front of our minds and ways that we can just maybe just be aware of what's going on and combat maybe some myths or some misunderstandings that are kind of running in the media and maybe even through our communities. Okay, so what we need to keep in mind is that the policy changes, the executive orders, the things that we may be hearing in the news, these are all very specifically created to create fear and chaos. That's not an opinion. That is what is stated by those, initiating these executive orders and policy shifts. So our response needs to be focused on what is factual, what is actually happening, and what can we do to continue to protect ourselves in our community. So, first of all, there is no immigrant invasion at the U.S.-Mexican border. So this is something that obviously is being repeated over and over again. The numbers of border crossings, even unauthorized border crossings, it is constantly in fluctuation. We saw it plummet in 2024 before even the election took place. So this idea that there's just masses of people trying to cross the border illegally is really just factually not correct. The majority of undocumented immigrants in the US, they've been here for 10 years or longer. So these are folks that are really integrated into our communities, into our schools, and you all as, either representatives from your local DELACs or your schools, that these are families for the most part that have been here and are a part of our economy, a part of our community, a part of our schools for a really long time. 1/6 of people in Orange County
are undocumented or live with someone who is undocumented. So this is a huge actual like part of our community here, specifically in Orange County, that, you know, 1 out of every 6 people is themselves undocumented, or someone in their family or in their home is undocumented. So this is something that really does touch almost all of us. If we're, you know, moving about our lives throughout Orange County or even in Fullerton, this is an issue that we're all connected to, whether it be our own families or relationally or through the kids that we serve, the families that we serve. Let's see. Oh, wrong way. Okay, in Orange County, 73% of undocumented people are Latino, but 22% are Asian. And actually, the Asian undocumented population is the fastest growing population of undocumented immigrants. So this idea also that this is, you know, a problem of just within the Latino community is not true. It's not accurate. Of course, the most immigrants that we're going to have, especially in Southern California, are going to be from south of our border because of proximity. But there is a large population of immigrants coming from other parts of the world, and specifically our Asian population is really directly impacted by immigration as well. Gosh, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, undocumented immigrants. So we hear this, and this is actually really important to understand as a narrative. We hear this in the news, especially coming from the White House, that immigrants are criminals, and that the federal government is only going after criminals. So actually crossing the border, being here undocumented, is actually not considered a criminal offense, okay? Especially if it's only been one time. What the Trump administration has done is they have internally and fundamentally changed the definition of what it means to be a criminal, an immigrant criminal. And they are classifying anybody here that is undocumented as a criminal. So when they say, we are just going after criminals, what they're saying also is that to them, undocumented immigrant equals criminal, regardless if you've actually committed a crime that violates local, state law. It doesn't matter. That's how they're defining it. So they're giving a narrative that says, oh, don't worry, we're just going after criminals. But internal documents and even some, you know, spokespersons for the administration are saying, well, if you're here undocumented, you are a criminal. But the reality is that immigration, even for undocumented immigrants, are associated with lower crime levels. So communities that have higher populations of immigrants, undocumented immigrants, tend to actually have lower crime rates. And actually, immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than US-born citizens. That is a fact based on lots and lots and lots of research. Most, what you'll see as far as like stats is what we'll see a narrative around focusing on federal violations, okay? So there's different kinds of criminal activity, right? There's local, state, federal, different laws. When you look just at federal criminal violations, you're going to see a higher population of immigrants committing federal violations. Why is that? Immigration law is federal law. So any violation of an immigration law is considered a violation of federal law. By and large, most crime, I would say probably 90%, I need to check the most recent data on that, most crime is actually handled at the local and state level. So you have to look at local and state criminal activity statistics to actually understand that most of the crime being committed, it's not by immigrants, and that immigrants population much less likely to violate local and state laws than US-born citizens. So this narrative that immigrants are committing crimes at higher levels than US citizens are bringing crime is factually just incorrect. How do I go to the next slide? Anybody? I'm pushing it. Do I have to point at something? It is. Aren't we all? Okay. There we go. Okay. It's also really important. Like I said, immigration is a federal law. So the federal government oversees our immigration system. They control who gets in, who gets visas, TPS, asylum, DACA. All of these programs are federal, through the federal immigration system. So what we are seeing is changes to TPS. So if you're not familiar with TPS, TPS is temporary protective status. This is a law, but the president and the administration does get to designate who gets TPS. From what country are we offering TPS? And this is simply put, it's a temporary protection, temporary protective status for folks from certain countries that are experiencing whether it be a natural disaster or political upheaval, civil war. Basically, it's for folks that are already here saying, we know that it's not safe for you to go back to your country for whatever reason. So we're going to give you a temporary status so that you could stay here, so that you can work and live safely. So the most recent TPS additions have been for Venezuelans, for Ukrainians. Those programs have been canceled by the administration. There's other countries that still have TPS that's still active, but we do expect that at some point those programs are going to be shut down as well. The federal government is also in charge of enforcement. They are over DHS, which is the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, which is the law enforcement arm of our immigration system, and Border Patrol, which is the officers that protect the border. They're in charge of detentions and deportations and raids. So obviously, this has been the focus of this administration is mass deportations. And yes, we have seen, some ramp up of enforcement, but by and large, still, the administration does not have the money to fulfill their quotas and their plan of mass deportation. So they are enacting other ways to try to mitigate that. And I have a colleague that's going to come up in a minute, and she's going to talk a little bit more about some of those kind of policy strategies that the administration is using and how we can just be aware of what the significance of all that is. Oops. Okay, we did talk about this back in January, if you were there, about how there was an MOU between an MOU for ICE, that sensitive locations MOU, that prohibited ICE from entering sensitive locations like churches and schools, right? This was one of the first things that did go away under this new administration. So this MOU no longer exists, which basically gives ICE jurisdiction to enter whatever place they want. However, in the state of California, we still are considered a sanctuary state. We still have some protections based on state law that prohibit our local law enforcement from helping ICE, and that do give our schools and sensitive locations some extra layer of protection that would require a judicial warrant for ICE to enter our schools. So as scary as it is and may seem, just know that the school district specifically and the state of California is doing everything that they can to ensure that ICE does not disrupt learning for our families and disrupt those sensitive locations that are so important to our communities. I kind of already touched on that. Yes, so so far their promises of like mass deportation, it isn't working as well as they would probably like it to. And a lot of that does have to do with community education. The more that we know our rights and our community members know their rights, that it actually does deter ICE activity. And that there have been plenty of reports of attempted raids where people have asserted their rights, and it has actually deterred and prevented additional kind of collateral damage or additional arrests by ICE. So if you haven't already attended one of the Know Your Rights workshops, there is a webinar. I think the last Know Your Rights I did is on the Fullerton School District website that you can watch that. There's so many resources that the school district has around Know Your Rights. It's really, really important that we all stay informed and educated on what our rights are and what to do if we encounter ICE, because it actually does work. Yeah, there is an attempt from this administration to use other federal agencies to kind of do the work of ICE. There's talk about the IRS, using the IRS. There's talk about using even like marshals and things like that. So all of this is still to be determined. These are all plans that need a lot of money and a lot of manpower, which just at this moment doesn't necessarily exist in our federal government. Oh, I keep going the wrong way. And just as a reminder that we do still have Plyer versus Doe, which ensures that any child living here in the United States has access to free public education. So regardless of your immigration status, regardless of your children's immigration status, they are entitled to a free and quality public education, and that is what they will continue to get here in the Fullerton School District, regardless of your immigration status. And yes, this is exactly what happened in 2016, 2017, the last time that we had a Trump administration. There's lots of executive orders and then lots of lawsuits that kind of stall or change or kind of prohibit some of those executive orders. So we're seeing that same thing happen again, and that's going to be ongoing for the next, several years. And so even if, the news drops that there's some big executive order, for example, birthright citizenship. Well, that's going to get, there are still checks and balances in our government that will stop some of those, the executive orders that are unconstitutional from actually going into effect. So don't panic when we see the news drop about, some executive order that seems very extreme or very harsh. That there's a lot of people that are just constantly working to ensure that anything that does go into place is actually constitutional. And obviously the birthright citizenship one to start is actually not constitutional. So it's not actually happening. All right, I think same thing is happening. Trying to go to the next slide and it's not working. There. Okay, so again, this is, I've probably already touched on this, but there are state level laws and rights about how immigrants are treated. And that does give us an extra layer of protection here in California. So the Senate bill that I already mentioned, that has made California a sanctuary state. This limits the police collaboration with ICE and enforcement in schools. So it actually prohibits our local police officers from helping ICE in their raids or in their work at all. There's some exceptions to this if it's for very serious crimes that are committed, but by and large, traffic violations, minor, like petty theft, minor crimes, our law enforcement are not going to be turning that information over to ICE. And also, it's a good reminder, a good point to say, if you are a victim of a crime, by calling our local police, that should not put you at any risk for your information being shared with ICE. It's very important that we report crime. And so, especially if you are a victim of crime. So please rest assured that there are state law protections that prohibit our law enforcement from sharing your information with ICE or with immigration. There are new bills at the state level that again are just trying to address some of these federal policies coming through. There's been money allocated at our state level. I think our state representative Sharon Quirk-Silva shared about that in her video. So really, the state they are really trying to do as much as they can to make sure that our communities are safe. Yeah, there's a little bit about some of the money that's being allocated specifically to help kind of enshrine and protect the immigrant community here in California. Oh, it worked that time. Okay, so just to touch on finally, what's going on locally in Orange County and Fullerton. FSD thankfully passed Safe Schools Resolution and Policy, which was really, really great. Absolutely, our district is leading the way on this, and other districts are looking to Fullerton as an example of how are we addressing these issues and how are we ensuring that our families are safe and our families continue to send their kids to school. So, you know, a lot of thanks to our district and to our board members for the work on that. Our teachers and staff, they've been trained on all of this, on how to protect their schools, how to prevent ICE from coming on their school campuses, how to even conversations about how to mitigate kind of maybe even bullying around this in our communities. There's been lots and lots of training, lots of conversations for our administration and for our staff on really how to come alongside our immigrant families and students during this time specifically. And then we actually have representative from Orange County here from the county, but the Board of Supervisors did just pass a resolution focusing on supporting children of mixed status families and what is going to be the response from the county should parents and children experience separation due to deportation or detention. So there is even proactive activity happening at the county level, which is great. Yes, and a reminder here, state and local law enforcement do not have the right to ask you about your immigration status. They should not be asking you about that, and you don't have to disclose that. So, you know, keep that in mind that federal and state are actually two separate entities, and federal is over immigration, state and local are here to serve and protect our community members. And so there really shouldn't be too much overlap between those law enforcement agencies. Okay, now I'm going to actually invite up my colleague, Christy White. She's an immigration attorney. We've worked together for several years, and she's just going to kind of give us a real brief, like, this is what we're seeing on the ground in our offices with our clients and the way that we actually practice law and what changes we're seeing and how it might impact the community. So thank you, and here's Christy.
All right, thank you so much. Just really quickly, lots of familiar faces in the crowd, which I love. I'm a resident of Fullerton, and I have 3 children, and they were K through 8 at Beechwood School. And now I had a child who went to Sonora High School, graduated, and I have 2 children at Troy High School. So I'm an invested member of this community. This isn't just, you know, me coming from outside and trying to give some random advice. This is very important to me and to my family and to my children's friends. So thank you for having us. I am exceptionally just excited that the Fullerton School District is taking this so seriously, wanting to educate families, but also teachers and staff. If for nothing else, it just sends a reminder to our entire community that everyone is welcome and that they are not alone. So as far as just policy changes and what we're actually seeing on the ground, this idea of mass deportations is going to be difficult to implement, but what they can do is they pick the easiest kind of, as everyone says, the lowest hanging fruit. So if, the San Clemente checkpoint on the 5 has been reopened, that was closed basically since before COVID. I feel no one really ever was stopped for agriculture or citizens by Border Patrol, but it has been reopened. It is open periodically. So an example of that, an expedited removal is something that didn't exist before 1996, but now it exists in the law. It permits Border Patrol, ICE, CBP to effectively order someone or remove them. That's the nice way of saying deport them immediately. And the way the law is written is that if you are discovered within so many miles of the border, and I probably should have looked this up before I came, but I want to say it's like 100 to 150 miles of the border, you can be deported immediately. The way you can stop that is by showing that you've been here for 2 years or more. So there is a lot of, I would say, rumors / information in the community, but I do recommend for people, and if, again, I don't want teachers, administration giving legal advice. That's why we're here. We can send people to resources. I'll be at Nicholas tomorrow in the morning to answer exact questions. But for families that are here, there is a reason that you would want to carry on your phone evidence that you have been present in the United States for 2 years or more. Okay. And that would be to stop an expedited removal. Also, to express fear of return to your home country. If you can give a specific fear of return, then that can prevent you being deported immediately. We are expected, and expedited removals we will see an uptick. Now, when you say 150 miles of the border in California, you have to realize that the entire coast is the border. It's not just the southern border. And the Trump administration last time also was interpreting any international airport with a CBP desk as also being with a border, essentially. So it's far reaching. There's almost no part of the state of California where you're not within this realm. Registry. Okay, this by far seems to be the most sweeping idea that the administration is trying to implement. The rule is not fully published in the Federal Registry yet, but it's an interim final rule, which means that it looks like it's going to get passed. Now, as Bethany just said, lawsuits will happen. Okay, so I'm not trying to send panic. I'm just trying to give information here. Registry right now, as it's written, requires any person 14 years or older who's in the country, who's undocumented or who has never registered, and then there's a legal definition of that, to fill out a form online. And I read today they want people to pay a fee while they're doing it. So, you know, I mean, it never stops. But the registry is going to be interesting because as an attorney, I cannot tell anyone to not follow the law. Absolutely. If a client comes in and says, should I follow the law? I have to say yes. But I also would say, if you register, these are some of the things you can expect. If you don't register, these are some of the things you can expect. The interim final rule has not registering as a misdemeanor with 6 months in federal prison and a $5,000 fine being part of it. So I think this is going to create a lot of fear, a lot of confusion within the community, and we really are going to have to stay on top of whether this is a real thing. Because what my concern is seeing forward is that if someone doesn't register because they're scared and then later they have a path to apply for something, that lack of registry is going to be used against them. But if they register, then they're telling the federal government where they're living and who they are and where to find them. So it's going to be a catch-22. Reinstatement of in-person interviews. Under the Biden administration, almost all family interviews were waived. That means if you were trying to immigrate through a spouse, or you were immigrating through, you were yourself a child who's born here and you were immigrating a parent at the age of 21, those interviews were waived. The Trump administration has said all interviews are back in person. So I'm sharing this information specifically so people do not panic. If you have applied for your green card and you get called in for an interview, but maybe your cousin or friend got their green card 2 years ago and didn't get an interview, this does not mean that somehow you're going to be arrested or taken away. It's just that everyone's back to in-person interviews, and you should not be scared if you've actually filed an application. ICE check-ins, though, we have seen change dramatically. So an ICE check-in, for people who are like, what does that mean? There are individuals who have removal orders who, for one reason or another, have been permitted to have check-ins with the Immigration Customs Enforcement in Santa Ana. They have a set date and an appointment. They come in. They want to verify your address. They want to know where you're living. I had a mom of 2 very young children who went in for her check-in a couple weeks ago and was absolutely left decimated. They said, come back with your passport next time we're taking you. You're being detained. So if you have friends, family, or community members who have ICE check-ins, I would highly, highly recommend that they come and speak to either an attorney or a legal representative, a Department of Justice accredited representative, before they go to their ICE check-in to get some advice, and maybe even take a legal representative with them. Okay, this has been another most recent thing, is the push for self-deportation. The Department of Homeland Security head department is literally on the news saying, hey guys, if you guys just go back, it's going to be fine. Then you can come the right way. They're repurposing an app, a CBP1 app, so that people can say they've self-deported. And they're really pushing this in the media. I've seen it in the Spanish media. And I personally have had consultations in the last few weeks with people who are considering self-deportation. 100% you need to have a legal consultation before you decide to self-deport. If you have been in the United States for more than 365 days without authorization, and the minute you cross that border, you have a 10-year penalty. So this idea that you're going to come back right away is not true, absolutely misleading, and people who believe it are going to be very shocked when they're told they have a 10-year penalty for their time here without authorization. Time to naturalize. Anyone who has had a green card for a long time, maybe is scared, worried, a very common, a lot of people are just exceptionally proud of the country that you come from, and you feel like it's almost a betrayal to become a US citizen. Almost every country, because it's not up to the US, it's up to your home country whether you can have dual citizenship. So for example, if you're a Mexican, you remain Mexican. You keep your Mexican passport. You can proudly claim you are Mexican, but you can also be protected with a US passport. So we highly recommend that if you do have a green card, you know people who have green cards, and they've had it for the required amount of time. It's awesome that Congressman Correa's office is holding that free, seminar. Camino Services, Bethany was just up here, free consultations, World Relief in Garden Grove, Catholic Charities, on and on. There's lots of resources to go in and get a free consultation with someone to find out whether or not it's a good time to naturalize. And contrary to that is maybe if you have a criminal conviction in your past, maybe you have something that has come up, you owe taxes, you owe child support. There's a number of reasons we would tell you to not naturalize. So it's very important to come in and get a consultation before you file that paperwork, and the government has it. Okay, and then the very, very last thing, very common within the Spanish-speaking community. I don't know how common it is within, say, the Korean-speaking community or other communities, but this idea that if you've been here for 10 years or more, then you're completely protected if you have a child who's been born here. This isn't true. I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. We're in a very, long seminar. All I can say is there are reasons you would want to keep physical presence of 10 years. So as a mom, you get all of the report cards, you get everything. Sometimes I think, well, why would I keep it? If you're really on the bubble of thinking it and you're in a mixed status household or you yourself are undocumented, you do want to probably start to think about keeping some evidence and proof that you've been here longer than not. Okay, so again, that would be a reason to have a consultation, but I just really want to make clear that within the community, there sometimes is a lot of misrepresentation on the media of possible benefits to things, and that's why it's always better to get information. And we're lucky to live in Southern California and to live in Orange County, honestly, where there are so many resources available for families. And I just reiterate, I will be at Nicholas tomorrow, completely free. Drop in, say hello. People are there. The dates are published, and we want to be a resource. And we don't want there to be, because of lack of funds or because of language barrier, that people don't come in and get the resources that they need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we do want to bring up Jose Serrano with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. He'll be talking about supporting parents with practical resources. Oh, and Rosa Maria Nava, social worker as well at OIRA.
Good morning, everyone. Who feels a sensory overload? Raise your hand. Yeah. We're going to try to take this slow. We're going to try to make it simple. It is exhausting. It is tiring. It is frustrating. It is overwhelming. But I think one of the wonderful things that I do appreciate about this space is that we are here as a collective. And it's not about immigrants or refugees or whether you have status or no status. It's about our human experience. And if we're able, if we have the capacity to look beyond our cultural differences, our language barriers, our socioeconomic status, and just see another person as an extension of our own humanity, you won. we've won. And even folks who are just so hard to love during this time because of the panic and anxiety that they may be causing, they're still human beings. And if we're able to extend that compassion, sometimes we don't have that capacity. So I recognize that. I totally recognize that. And if you're not there, that's okay. And yet, in order for us to move the dial on creating more inclusive, creating belonging, we need to come together. My name is Jose Serrano. I'm the director of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. It is a pleasure to be here with you. What we're going to do today, before we start into what we actually do as an office, there is a sheet of paper on your table. I want you to grab it. I want you to fold it in half, and I want you to fold it in half again so you can get 4 squares. We are going to do a bridge maker. I do have to give you a little bit of information before we start. It can be a little triggering because it is a loss simulation. So the word loss means you're going to experience something. So if you are directly impacted, or if you just feel like you don't have the capacity to actually go through this process right now, it's okay. Go ahead, grab a seat or get out of your seat. Go ahead and take a walk. But it can be a little triggering, just FYI. The reason for this bridge maker, not an icebreaker, but a bridge maker, right, to connect, it's for us to really become more centered as to why is it that we do the work that we do. It is also a great way to connect the work that OIRA does, the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, and why it's so significant at this moment. If you're watching online, you can actually do this as well. Just get a sheet of paper, tear it up into 4 pieces, get a pencil or a pen. Everybody has pens? Okay, awesome. People have pens. That's amazing. The first thing that you're going to do is on one of the, I see you're folding. Fold it and then fold it again, and you should be able to get 4 squares and then tear them apart. This is our crafts time. We need it. And again, there's a purpose why we're doing this. And if they're not perfectly cut, that's okay. I'm OCD too. It's okay. This is our time to just let it go. Breathe in, breathe out. That's what's more important at this time. I'll give you 10 seconds. This is a perfect opportunity if your neighbor next to you is having, I don't want to say a challenging time, but it's just taking a little longer. This is an opportunity to help your neighbor and be a good neighbor. All right, we're going to start because I only have 15 minutes. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to write the name of one person that is important to you on one of the pieces of paper. If you're a parent, choose your favorite child. I'm just kidding. But on a serious note, write the name of a person, one person that is important to you. And if you do have children, you can only write one person's name or one child's name. You cannot put my children, okay? We got 5 seconds to write that. It's whatever comes to your mind really quickly. On the second square, on a separate square, you're going to write one thing that is important to you. One thing that is important to you. Maybe it's a necklace that a parent of yours gave to you. Maybe it's a very important photo album. One thing, whatever comes to mind, just write it. Like an item, a thing, yeah. Your cell phone, your laptop, your dog. No, he's not a thing, I guess. It's a member of the family. Hydro flask, I don't know, something, a thing that's important to you. On the third piece of paper, you're going to write a title that you hold. So I saw a lot of principals. So maybe it's your title as a principal. Maybe it's a title as a parent, a teacher, an educator, a leader, an artist. Whatever comes to mind, whatever applies to you. And then on the last piece of paper, a hobby. One hobby. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you are a cyclist. Maybe you're a runner. All right. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to complete all of that. Okay. So I want you to flip the pieces of paper and then shuffle them around without you seeing what's inside or what you've written. You can put them on the table. You can put them on the table. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think of the times that we're experiencing right now and the instability that is happening and the fear that is happening, but maybe raise it to a few degrees higher, where actually people are knocking on your door. You're being persecuted. You're being forced to leave your home. There's violence that has erupted. You're scared. You're being targeted because you might belong to a particular group, or maybe it's the color of your skin. Maybe it's your religion. Maybe it's your political opinion. And you're just terrified. You have no options but to leave to the closest country that you might call home. I want you to open your eyes. I want you to pull one card. That card that you pulled is the only thing, person, hobby, or item that you are only holding now. Everything you've lost. Everything else that you've written on your card, it's no longer with you. How does that make you feel? Just words. Any words? What was that? Okay. The reality is emotional. What else? Alone. Terrified. Like you've lost the meaning of life. This is exactly what people experience on an everyday basis. This is what your kids could be experiencing in your school, what your parents are going through. And as educators, as principals, as community directors, as leaders in the community, as people who hold public space or public positions, as the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, this is why this office is really important. And so within the last 2 years, the Board of Supervisors for the County of Orange created this office in order for it to be a central hub of resources for the community so that we can promote equity, belonging of immigrants and refugees because of these same experiences that people are going through. And sometimes what's really interesting is that we actually don't know that our neighbor or our colleague has actually gone through this. And this is the reason they are now our neighbors. And it is also those same experiences that make us feel our own humanity once we choose to engage with them. And as an office, if we can switch it to the next page or the next slide, as an office, our goal is that people feel like they not only belong, but that they can also invest and be a part of a community of people where, regardless of the journey that they have taken, they feel like they are included, that we are a community. How do we do this? So we have certain goals, right? We have equity, belonging, economic prosperity, and celebration. Those are ultimately the things that we would like to achieve, but there are 5 different areas, 5 areas of focus that the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs tries to look at and also invest in and serve and connect people with, so that we can equip families and the community so they can achieve belonging and feel like they are a part of community. The 5 areas are education and employment, food and nutrition, health and mental wellness, housing navigation, and legal services. How do we do this? Well, we are a central hub of resources. When we do screenings, and anyone in the community, regardless of the status that they hold, is able to come to this office, which is a part of social services agency, in order for us to best support them and equip them with the tools that they may need in order to feel more at home. So for example, we know, right, there's a misconception that immigrants take things, especially those who are without status. Well, just so you know, immigrants who don't have status aren't eligible for a lot of the social service agency resources. Their children might be who are US citizens, but it's their children, not them. So how do we, and you experience this probably often as educators, if the family is not stable, your student is not stable. If we stabilize and provide resources to the parents so that they can feel whole, your student will be whole. And so ultimately what we do is when we get screenings, when we do screenings and referrals, what we do is we look at all of these different areas. And all of these different areas help us get a better understanding as like, where can we best connect this family with? And a lot of times, folks who are coming through our office who are without status aren't eligible for those resources. But this is why we have a network of community partners that help us. And I know AAAJ is here, so Asian Americans Advancing Justice. We have also Bethany, who presented, right? And other groups, Social Services Agency. Sandra, please stop by if you have any questions. She's an incredible human being who works doing outreach. This is how we equip people. This is how we make sure that people are seen. This is how we make sure people feel whole. Next slide. One important thing, and I actually don't really like to talk about this narrative or framework, is this good immigrant narrative, right? That immigrants are only good if they produce. But I think it is an important one because this is part a little bit of our identity, right? And I say this as a person who was undocumented for over 20 years in the United States. Immigrants get the job done. We do. We do. We are contributors. We are innovators. We're resilient. We like to connect. We're entrepreneurs, right? Those are the alternative stories that aren't shared or told. And so this slide is a form of motivation to all of us because there is power. Look at the spending power that we have for the state of California just within the last 5 years. This was also provided by the American Immigration Council. Look at that power. Next slide. This is an OC status chart. Again, it breaks down into how many immigrants are within Orange County, right? Also, the tax paid that is contributed or paid by the community here. 1 in almost every 3rd person in Orange County is of immigrant background. There's 3 million people in Orange County approximately. That means a little bit over 1 million or around 1 million are of immigrant background. That is a huge number. This is why the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, again, is important and why the county and why we think the Board of Supervisors for creating it, because the truth is, in order for us to tell a more complete story of the identity, right, of who Orange County is, then we must tell the story of immigrants and refugees. Next slide. In our previous Bridgemaker, we talked about the experiences that people go through, right? Some of us don't have to go into the details about them because we know. But I think like any human being, any parent here who wants the best for their children, this is the same story that immigrants and refugees have. They're pushed and pulled for various reasons. In my particular experience, it wasn't a push factor, it was more of a pull factor. My parents wanted me to have a better education, right? My parents wanted a better job so that they can actually provide a form of dwelling, food on the table. And if they hadn't risked that, then I wouldn't be able to support or help so many people. And I'm not saying because I need the attention or anything like that, because I actually don't care for it. But I think it is also the journeys that we take that make us better. So when we migrate, we learn so much. And that is something that should be cherished. These are just push and pull factors, not just, but the push and pull factors that people experience, why they migrate and whatnot. I think a lot of times, next slide, a lot of times we don't understand we hear categories, right? Undocumented, refugee, immigrant, undog, a TPS holder. Again, sensory overload. This slide shares a little bit about what that is. Refugees and those who are seeking asylum, same definition. Any person who's been persecuted or is afraid to return to their country of origin because of persecution on their race, ethnicity, particular social group, nationality, religion. All of those reasons, those are the folks that we call refugees and asylum seekers. The only difference between those two categories is where they request that benefit. For undocumented people, and again, the push and pull factor is the same. For undocumented communities, it could be very similar. Same push and pull factors, but sometimes certain experiences aren't looked at. You won't be able to get a benefit out of that. A benefit meaning an opportunity to become a citizen or naturalized under that trajectory that you have taken, and therefore you find yourself encountering barriers towards citizenship. So it's not for a matter of people not wanting to naturalize. The last person in my family just became a resident this past year. It took her 30 years. After submitting an application in 1994. So when people say apply the right way, is there really a right way? When people say get in line, what is the line? To conclude, what you are each doing is incredible. It is what I call at church third culture. It is revolutionary. It is unique, and it is exhausting, and it is tiring. But I also know that as a person like myself who has been an immigrant in the United States, I am extremely thankful for all of the people, the educators especially in my life, who invested so much in me. And because of them, I am able to be in a position where I can continue to serve and support people. So your work, the work that you're doing is incredible. Keep on doing it. Make sure to rest. Make sure to lean on each other. And last thing before I leave, to all the immigrant communities that are here and the people that are joining us, it is the power and the excitement and the joy that is still found inside of you during this time that keeps us going, that keeps me going. So any questions that you might have, please connect with us. We will be here a little bit after. Rosie is an incredible human being, a social worker for the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, overseeing 34 cities and incorporated areas. So thank you for your time. Any questions, please let us know. Have a wonderful day.
You, Jose. And as they mentioned, they will be here in the back after the event. So we've been sitting for about an hour. So I just want you guys to stand up. Don't look at me like that, Bill. Stand up. Stretch. I want you to breathe in, smell the flowers, and cool the soup. One more time. Smell the flowers and cool the soup. All right. Now you can have a seat. Stretch, stretch, stretch. And we want to bring up our next guest speaker and amazing partner. She does a lot for our students through the programs that they offer. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Dr. Cynthia Olivo, the president of Fullerton College.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es doctora Cynthia Olivo y soy la presidenta de Fullerton College. It's an honor to be here before all of you today. Gracias. I got to meet one of the moms before she had to leave, and she mentioned her son is a student at my college and that she's trying to get one of his friends enrolled at the college who also doesn't have status. And so I know today I was asked to provide a DACA update, pero también quería avisarlos que we created a webpage. Tenemos nueva página en nuestro website y que tiene todos los recursos que tenemos para los estudiantes que no tienen papeles. Y it's right on our homepage. So if you just go to the homepage, you'll see the slider. The first one says Women's History Month. Happy Women's History Month. See? And then the second button has undocumented student resources. So our college has a program. Tenemos una programa que se llama Grads to Be y tiene consejería, tiene ayuda para los estudiantes que no tienen papeles. También tenemos asistencia financiera en el estado de California. We have money for students from the state of California through our financial aid department. So our undocumented students really should enroll at the college and know that we have an entire college, all of our teachers, our staff members, all of our administrators, we are all here to support our students and our students who are undocumented or students from mixed status families. We know the emotional labor that it takes to be the only person in your family or one of few who has status. And that's, a difficult situation to be in. So we provide services for students. And I want to say, a little bit about myself as a person. I am the granddaughter of migrant farm workers who were born here in California. Well, in the United States, actually. My grandmother, Salome, was born in Wichita as they were helping to build the railroad. And my grandpa, Juan, was born in Texas, right outside of Dallas. And his family were migrant farm workers. I was raised by this amazing single mom who, came up during a time before Brown versus Board of Education. And so my family has experienced generations, of oppressive conditions. So these kinds of things are not new. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. And so I will just say we continue to persevere as a community and a people, and we will get through this time period together. In regards to DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, we will help students at Fullerton College who have DACA status already. And we connect with a community partner called Carecen. Our community partner provides free legal assistance to any student who needs it. And we have an attorney who visits our campus weekly and also provides Zoom or FaceTime sessions if a student would prefer to do it that way instead, or needs to because they're busy in their lives. The other is we help students to sign up as independent contractors if you are not already a DACA recipient. And so we utilize information that you all can find on a webpage called immigrantsrising.com. And on Immigrants Rising, there's a step-by-step procedure on how one can sign up to be an independent contractor. I mention that because this January, the courts upheld that our country will continue to abide by DACA laws, but that's only for people who already have DACA. The federal government is not accepting new DACA applications. Now listen, this is my 28th year working in higher education. I began as a college counselor at Cal State San Bernardino. And I remember I would talk to students back then. This is 1996. We did not have Assembly Bill 540. We did not have DACA. And I remember students telling me, I love what you're saying about college, pero me estás abriendo una puerta a una puerta cerrada. You're opening a door that basically leads to a closed door because I want to work after I get my college education. And I said then what I'll continue to say now. You know, you need to just continue to remain hopeful, stay focused, and put one foot, right, paso a paso, one step at a time. And we will work on continuing to create laws and a pathway forward. And we are all here in this room as resources. And at Fullerton College, please know you have a college full of people who care and will do everything possible to help our students no matter your status. And I'll just say I got my start as a college student activist during an era of Proposition 187. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I organized a march against Prop 187 and then created a new organization called the Chicano Coalition. And then together we started organizing to help undocumented students. So at the core of my being is an activist. When I was earning my PhD at Claremont Graduate University, my research was centered on undocumented students because I just see and feel that this group of students have so much desire and put so much hard work in making their dreams come true, and it's our responsibility to meet that energy and do everything we possibly can to help them. So thank you very much. I hope you all send your kids to Fullerton College. And remember, you yourselves can sign up at Fullerton College. Thank you. We do have a brand new bachelor's degree program in drones and autonomous systems that was just approved. So we are offering our first bachelor degree program and next fall of 2026. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olivo. Maybe we see another pathway in the works for us from the junior high to the high school to Fullerton College. So we are on our way. Now I do want to bring up Ash Alvandi. He's the Vice President of Orange County's Asian Americans Advancing Justice for Southern California. And he's going to talk about changes and focusing on what matters to families during this time. Ash.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. Just so I can gauge the room, how many of you all are parents? How many of you are parents? Okay. How many of you are faculty or admin? Okay, great. About half split. That's great. Well, great to meet everybody. My name is Ash, and my title is a mouthful, so I will not say it again. But really appreciate the school board and the admin here setting up this event. It's very important, and we haven't seen as much interest in setting up these events across the county and state. So it is really important. I think this is the first step for folks to know exactly what's going on and provide some additional information. I will say it seems the great presenters before me kind of covered a lot of the stuff that I would usually cover as far as policies that we're tracking, as far as what the administration is doing right now, what we're seeing here in Orange County. So I will try to go through this relatively quickly. Again, by way of introduction, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, AJ SoCal. We are the largest legal service provider in the nation for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. We do serve, and right at the top, I'll say this, we serve Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese, which I think are the largest need for this particular group. So, if you need in-language support, if you have follow-up questions, our information will be on the last slide here. And I, just want to make sure that resource is there for folks. If you don't capture anything else I say, that's going to be the most important thing. We really want to make sure that we're supporting folks in language. And I think, language access is going to be a huge issue that we're seeing through the administration. Do I have a slide clicker? Oh, this is it. Perfect. No, wrong way. Okay, perfect. So with this slide, as folks have kind of talked about, we are seeing an increase in immigration enforcement. That being said, it is not what the propaganda, so to speak, is saying. There are my slide kind of speaks for itself, so I won't go through everything on here. But that's just to say we have about a backlog of about 3.7 million people awaiting hearings across the country. And when they say that they're going to deport 11 million people, our estimates are that there's probably closer to 16 million in the country that would be targeted under the broader scope. Generally, we're not seeing them target the broad population. It has been focused on, as our colleague said, folks that have been involved in other ways, which I will go over in a moment. Let's see. These are the folks that actually administer the current administration's legal decision to enforce immigration services. So what you'll see is U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, is the one that does essentially immigration enforcement on sovereign soil. The other folks are administrative at the top, and the middle one would be if you're going through a border or some sort of zone that would require you to have documentation. Okay, perfect. Yeah. As I mentioned, I think we are seeing that this has not really been expanded to the larger population quite yet, as far as the scope of what the administration is doing. These are what we've seen enforcement is going to look like. We have seen some raids occur throughout the state, but not necessarily here in Orange County at the scale that we would call a raid. There have been enforcement actions primarily taken against folks that have some sort of record or are attached to the system in some way. The reason I'm going to keep coming back to kind of talking about, what we're actually seeing and what we expect to see, because the biggest thing we want to share with folks is that to alleviate some of that fear and some of that uncertainty in the community. And again, this event really is the first step towards that for folks to have the information to share with their community members. Let's see what we got next. Miss anything on this slide? The other thing I would flag is this last point on checkpoints in a reasonable distance. The reason, I know some folks spoke about the agricultural border in San Clemente down south that has been reinstated. I'm not exactly sure how many miles that is from the border, but about 100 miles is pretty close to middle of Orange County, closer to Orange County area. So you would assume that if there's going to be large scale enforcement action, they could actually create checkpoints at any place. So again, just keeping in mind the current scale, the rhetoric versus what is actually happening, even if there needs to be a large draw up of staff, increase budget for the enforcement agency to spend the 500 million, I think it's 500 billion actually is the number that's going to be required to do all the things that they're saying. There is still things that they could be doing that they're not doing. So the gap between the administration's statements and what is actually occurring is continuing to broaden. So here's what we would say for risk factors. Primarily, again, this is focused on the API community to some extent, but of course this expands to the larger population of immigrants. These are who we identify as the people that are going to be pulled in to the process, essentially. And the process has become much tougher in recent years. We have seen recent years, sorry, I've been living this for years now. It's been 3 months. We're like 50 days into this or something. someone have a count on how many days? It's 47 or something. Either way, we have seen folks are being detained at their ICE immigration check-ins. We are seeing folks with records be contacted and or detained. We have again seen actions in Orange County, cities you wouldn't expect. We've seen them in South County. We've seen them all throughout. So there is activity, and it has really been focused on some of these prior reasons for attention. Here, this is our preparation doc, and I'm realizing now the text is super small for me, but if folks can read this, one of the things I really want to emphasize for you is if you have someone who you think might be in a situation where they need resources, please ask them to come up with a plan. Please ask them to contact one of our nonprofits, one of our, or an attorney, nonprofit attorney, or they could pay an attorney to help with this. Just have a plan, because if you are caught up in this, you will not have the opportunity to communicate the way that you want with your family members, with your caregivers. And in a family school setting, I think we need to have those secondary steps of folks that are able to support you, whether that's economically, childcare, et cetera. And if you do contact one of our organizations, we'll help you have the legal support. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you and that you can stay away. Be prepared to stay out of the system, because once you're caught up in it, there have been cases where we are not able to track very well what is happening with folks that have been caught up in the system. I phrase that specifically not to give anyone a tone of fear, but I'm sure everyone has heard of folks being put on planes and sent to other countries, and bridge deportations and all these things. So we really want to make sure folks are prepared so that they don't end up in any situation that they can't navigate. And I'm glad I cut some of my stuff out. The rest of these slides are actually just information about what we do. This one is our social media handles. Here's some more information and links I think the administration will be sending around. Missed that one. Here is some of our social media handles for those of you that are looking for in-language support. We do have Kakao Talk in Korean, as well as WeChat in Chinese, and a number of other services that you can access that will be giving you up-to-date information on the executive orders, on the really the policy changes, and places where you can find resources, whether that be legal or otherwise. And then this last slide additionally has some of our handles. If folks listening online and would like to share with their people that have language accessibility needs, would really appreciate that. And otherwise, yeah, that's all I have.
So I'm going to bring up Dr. Hammond, our Deputy Superintendent, to talk about what Fullerton School District is doing in terms of new resolutions and board policies. Dr.
All right. I know, well done, right? Good morning. My name is Chad Hammett. I'm the Deputy Superintendent. Buenos dias. Me llamo Chad Hammett. Soy el asistente superintendente. And I want to say welcome to our families and everyone who's here to support today. I don't know about you, but there has been a lot of information today, and a lot of information continues to go out. I would like to recommend that we have one spot on our district website. We have one page where we have tried to put together all of the information for our families. So if you go to our district website, and I don't know that I can get there from here, maybe I can have a little help from my friends. But if you go to our FSD website and you click under our immigrations resources page, you will have one location that has all the information from our district. For example, the resolution that our school board has recently passed regarding supporting our families with immigration concerns. Additionally, we have our own internal board policies that can help you with knowing what are our district's policies and how do you find those. You also will find links to all of our community resources and upcoming information and things we have to offer. You can see there, it's called Immigration Information. And there's today's meeting. But everything that we have put together here as a district and access out to our community resources is all in one spot. So I know sometimes you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of information here. This is a great one stop for you to go and to see what was the name of that organization again? Or I remember I went to that presentation in January, but where's the PowerPoint? It's here. Today's presentation will be posted here. Anything that you may need as a good starting point is posted on this website. Our board, as I said at the last board meeting in March, or in actually February, passed a resolution regarding safe and welcoming schools. They also are doing some work on updating and creating more board policies to help support our families. I want to thank our board for their hard work on that. And you will be able to come here and see a number of resources. So I know you've heard a lot today. And if you're like, wow, I just don't remember exactly what it is I need to remember, we do want to say this is a great place for you to go to our website, to immigration resources. And you will even find after today's presentation posted there if you need to refer back to it. So thank you all for being here with us today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hammond. And as mentioned, we have 2 more workshops in our Know Your Rights series. The next is March 26th from 8:30 to 10 o'clock at Nicholas. And then our third workshop will be April 23rd from 8:30 to 10. Both will have a lot of information, notaries, attorneys, financial literacy, all in support of just our families in Fullerton School District. So we do have time for Q&A. We had a lot of amazing speakers today, and they are here in the audience or in the back. But we do want to open it up for those of you who are online. You can ask questions, but these are the questions that you might want to pose. What are the needs and concerns that you still have issues that you still have about these issues, and what can FSD or our community, city do to address your needs?
Yeah, the question was just to share a little bit more about the idea of self-deportation, but also that oftentimes certain tactics are used to pressure people to sign to essentially self-deport and what the consequences or rights people have there. So again, I know this is not a group full of lawyers, so but I want to be careful about language we use because there is a difference between voluntary departure and deportation. There's a pretty big difference. I'm not going to get into that right now. But essentially, if you are in a situation, we have friends, family, community, they're in the situation where they are detained by ICE. It is a very, very common tactic, not just under this administration, just with people who are in ICE, especially with women. They will say, we know you want to see your kids, sign this paper, you'll be back with them tonight. That is just not true. So if you relinquish your rights and you sign something to agree to return to your home country voluntarily, you are effectively what I would call self-deporting, and you do not have rights once you leave to get back, especially if you don't have a family member to immigrate you or to qualify for a waiver. So there are very nuanced situations, but there is almost no circumstance where it's better to sign away your rights and agree to leave the country than to stay in detention and fight. Now, that is an absolute individual decision. Detention is jail. We just call it something else. You are imprisoned. You are not free to leave. You are on a schedule. You are in a, prison uniform. So as a mother, could I imagine being there and being separated from my children? No, I can't. So, honestly, if you're in that situation, you think, well, I'd rather be back in El Salvador, but have my kids with me, then realistically, that is a decision that you can make. But you have to understand that that is the decision you're making. You're foregoing the right to fight and to stay here. If you stay, you do have certain access to, say, an immigration judge, or to apply for asylum, or to apply for cancellation of removal, certain benefits that you would have if you didn't, do that. The self-deportation rhetoric, I would call it right now, that is really bothering me is that it is such a nuanced conversation to have. I'm not saying it's not right for people. If you as a family collectively decide that the stress that you are under in this current situation with this current administration, that it is better for you to talk about returning to your home country as a family and living together, I totally get that. No one should tell you, not to do that. But what you need to do is have a conversation with an attorney or with a DOJ accredited rep or someone who understands the law and the nuance and let them explain this is what that will mean for your family and the timeline realistically you are looking at if you ever do want to come back, or you will never be allowed to come back because of X, Y, and Z. And then you make that decision. You're making an informed decision, and more power to you, but everyone should be allowed to make their informed decisions.
Okay, so I do want to introduce our board president, Bev Berriman. She is here, so thank you, Bev.
I guess this actually for anybody, but if a family is undocumented and there isn't kind of awareness that they live here technically, and they were to just go back to their country, kind of informally self-deport or whatever, then they possibly could come back without the 10-year if they apply from their country. I'm just trying to figure. So like if you aren't in the system and you go back, is it better just to go back without telling people that you're doing that? I don't know.
Yeah, it gets very complicated very quickly. So I know I don't want to bore people with being in the weeds. The simple answer is no. So in order to immigrate legally to the United States, we have, as a country, decided there are two ways: through employment and through family, essentially, right? There's asylum, but I won't cover that. So there's family and there's employment. If you are a completely undocumented family, that means a father, mother, children, all born abroad, there would be no way really for you to return. Maybe a US citizen brother or sister with a wait time of, 40 plus years if you're Mexican. So just generally speaking, if the entire family is undocumented, no. Now, if you have mixed status families where you have children who are born here, US citizen children are entitled to immigrate their parents when they turn 21. But the nuance there too is, remaining outside of the country for 10 years is required, and you're not going to qualify for a waiver through your child. So it gets very complicated very quickly. With employment-based immigration, you have to be in a status in order to get another status. So anyone who is here out of status, that means maybe they came on a tourist visa and they overstayed. They came on an F1 student visa and they overstayed. They are not entitled to then decide to apply for an H-1B visa, which is an employment-based visa, or a EB-1A visa, which is another type. So it gets very complicated, and that's why it's really important to talk to someone to say, okay, yes, this could be a possible pathway, but this is the amount of time that we're looking at. And then to address the last question is, everyone who I speak with in a consultation who will look me in the face and say, I promise you, they don't know I'm here. I had no contact with CBP. I had no contact with Border Patrol. I had no contact with anyone. And then I say, okay, have you applied for a license? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Did you enroll your kids in school? Yeah. Did you go, people leave footprints. Right? That's just life. What we teach our kids, at least at Beechwood School, that you leave a digital footprint everywhere you go and it lasts forever. So I say, to people, really think twice. The government has access to airplane manifests. They know people who've flown into, it's really amazing how much information the government has. So to truly say they didn't know I was here is almost nearly impossible. So if you are going to make the decision as a family after a very comprehensive legal consultation to leave, you should 100% document it, because you want that clock to start running on your 10 years. So whatever it is, usually we'll recommend you go register, you put a light bill in your name, you get a rental bill in your name, you enroll your kids in school in that country, so they know for a fact that day one was, April 1st, 2025, and the clock starts rolling.
So thank you for attending, and we hope to see you at our next workshop.